Hello, it's me. Hi. Welcome to my November wrap-up. I don't even want to get into it, but November felt like a million years long, but I still feel like there's no way it's already December. It's already December. Hello. Anyway, books. This month was such a weird month for me because I was in the worst reading slump ever. Well, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a reading slump, but I just did not want to pick up a physical book at all. And so therefore, I did not read a single physical book this month. No ebooks, no paperbacks, because all the books I read this month were audiobooks. Which to me is very strange because I usually am not an audiobook person, but this month I really popped off with the audiobooks because I just was not in the mood to pick up a single physical book. Like, I sat there trying to read this one book. I got 50 pages into it, like the whole month, and I just couldn't do it. I was like, I would rather be doing other things. So I was like, you know what? Let me try listening to an audiobook. And after that, I was like, wow, this is amazing because I can listen to them and I can do other things. It's so fun. So yeah, all the books I read this month, all 10 of them were through the listening, the ear holes. Very strange, but I managed to get 10 books read, which is a lot for me, especially in these last few months where I have been not the most enthusiastic about reading. So I think I finally found my perfect solution for right now. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk to you about them. So starting off the month, I think it would be a good idea to start off my audiobook journey with listening to something that I've already read. And so the first book I read this month was a reread of November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I mentioned in my November TBR that I would love to reread this in November, and I did. This time going into it, I wasn't sure if I was going to love it as much anymore just because since then I've read so many other books and so many other Colleen Hoover books, but honestly, I still loved it. I still love Ben and Fallon. Like, I don't care what anyone says. I love them. So yes, this is about Ben and Fallon, if you didn't know. Basically, this book only takes place on one day each year for, I don't know, like 5 years, only on November 9 of each year. It was good. I still love it. I still gave it 5 stars. What can I say? Ben and Fallon are crazy. This book is crazy, but it's fun. It's emotional. It's just what I needed. It really set the tone for the month, and I was like, you know what? This is good. So next, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This one is Riley Sager's newest book. It is about this actress, and she kind of needs to step away for a little bit, take some time off. She has this cabin in this very rich, kind of secluded area. She kind of has a little bit of a drinking problem, and it kind of got her in some trouble with her job and like the paparazzi and all that stuff. So her mother she's like a full-grown adult, but her mother's like, you need to spend some time away from the media, so stay at this house. Right across the street there are some new neighbors. It's one of those classic thriller mystery books where she's spying on the neighbors and she ends up finding stuff out that she probably didn't need to know. You know, it's not really her business, but she befriends this lady, her neighbor across the lake, and ends up becoming a little bit obsessed with their lives. You know, she sits there on her balcony with her binoculars just like looking into their house, and it's like, girl, you do not need to be doing that, but that is the plot of the book. I don't know what to say about this without spoiling it, but there was something about this, about the plot of it, when things were starting to get revealed, that when I read it, I was like, huh? And I didn't really like that. I don't really like these types of things in books, in thrillers in particular, when this certain thing is used as the plot twist. I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say. I gave this 4 stars. Right? It was very interesting. It was kind of whack, but I did like the setting. The lake house, very fun, very spooky. I liked that the character was kind of unreliable. You know, she was always drinking. She was like always drunk. So you never knew if you could trust her or not, if she was seeing what she was seeing, if she was like thinking all. It was interesting. The twists and turns, they were good, but the main one, I was just like, I don't know about that. But overall, it was good. It was good. And I enjoy Riley Sager's writing a lot. This was the 3rd book that I read by him. Very good. And then I finally finished His and Hers by Alice Feeney. I talked about this in my freaking October wrap-up. I was like, yeah, I'm almost done with this. I'm gonna finish it. I was not almost done with it. And I did not finish it until like a week and a half into November because, like I said, a reading slump, and I'm pretty sure this was the book that really put me in that reading slump because I was reading the paperback and then I was like, I'm gonna try it on Kindle, and then I was like, this is boring. So I checked out the audiobook and I flew through the last 50% of it that I needed to finish. So as I said before, this follows two different people, two different perspectives. It's like a murder mystery type thing. There's a body found in the forest and the guy is the detective, so he's of course involved, and then the girl is like a newscaster. Is that what they're called? She does the news, so she's involved, obviously, because, you know, she's reporting it and stuff. This was just, like, kind of very boring to me. I'm learning what I like in thrillers and what I don't like. This one is definitely more of the slower murder mystery type of book rather than, like, creepy, scary suspense, fast-paced book. This one is definitely slow. You're uncovering things more slowly. There's just, like, smaller little things that get dropped rather than, like, these huge, crazy plot twists. And it just did not keep me engaged enough. I will say the ending got me. I got for sure. The ending was really good, so I did give it 3 stars for that, but the first 50%, so boring. Didn't care. The characters were just like kind of okay for me. I didn't care for them really. Solid 3 stars. Glad I finally finished this, but it was not my favorite. And then I read another thriller because, like I said, I was on a roll. And that one was The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. Now, I picked this up because she has a book called The Sundown Motel, and it was one of my favorite thrillers. It was so good. I loved that book so much. So I was like, let me try this one. This one is her newer one. I don't know when it came out. Anyway, this one is another murder mystery type of thing, but it's like more of an unsolved case. It follows our main character. What's her name? Her name is Shay, I think. She is like a true crime blogger. She's very, very interested in that type of thing. So she runs this blog of like all these unsolved cases. And there's this like one big case that took place in their town. It was like called the Lady Killer case because it was about the serial killer who was a woman. Long story short, Shay ends up running into this woman who is known as the Lady Killer. Don't even remember her name. What is her name? Beth. She ends up getting an interview with Beth. Things get revealed. To be honest, this was also kind of boring. I don't really, as you can tell, I don't really remember all the details because I was not too interested in it. This one was like a past, present timeline murder mystery, trying to figure out, you know, who actually was the Lady Killer all those years ago. What is this Beth lady trying to say? Why did she only do an interview with Shay? All these things, but it was just kind of underwhelming. The ending, I was just like, okay, whatever. So that was that. I gave it 3 stars. It was whatevs. And then I read Hideaway by Penelope Douglas. This is book 2 in the Devil's Night series. Last month I read book 1, which was Corrupt. And so this month I read book 2, which is Hideaway. And this was also very boring. I'm not gonna lie. This one takes place after Corrupt ends, so I don't really want to say too much about the plot, but it's also a past and present type of thing, and it follows Kai, who is a part of that whole Horseman friend group, and his love interest, who is Banks. She, it's not revealed until a little bit later who she is, so I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, I don't know. Honestly, I don't really remember too much about this because it was boring. I didn't really care for either of them. I did like Banks. She was cool. She was a baddie. But other than that, it just was not very memorable to me. I gave it 3 stars, but really it's more of like a 2.5. I don't know. Everyone says that the last 2 books are the best. So I'm gonna keep going, especially now that I can listen to them instead of read them because these books are long and they only get longer from here. This was okay. Kind of boring. I don't even really know what happened. It just went right over my head. So yeah. And then I read He Started It by Samantha Downing. Yet another thriller. This one was really good. I recently got this book. I mentioned it in my last video, which was my book haul, and boy was it good. It did not disappoint. This one is about this family. It's like a road trip story. Again, has a dual timeline, and in each of these timelines these siblings are on the same road trip. The first time they go on this trip, their grandfather takes them, and it's like this cross-country road trip. He takes them to all these weird museums, and they don't really know why their grandfather is taking them on this trip. Things are really sketchy with the grandpa, I'm not gonna lie. And then the present timeline, the siblings are now taking this exact same road trip because their grandfather recently died, and in order to get their inheritance from him, he makes them go on the same road trip, stop at these same museums. It's crazy. This time, two of the siblings have their spouses with them, so there's like that thrown into the mix. The spouses don't really know what's going on. They're like not in on the family secrets. Everyone has something to hide. There's someone following them. It was interesting. I love road trip books. This was so fun, and I was listening to this in the car, so I was like, yes. It was really good. It was one of those books you don't know who to trust, and I love those kinds of books because it really keeps you on your toes. You're like, who is hiding what are they thinking, what is going on, what is happening. The only thing is that the ending, I don't know whether I liked it or I hated it. It had kind of an ambiguous ending, so again, sometimes it's really fun and sometimes I'm like, oof, that was good, and other times I'm like, just tell me what happened. So I gave this 4 stars. Very enjoyable. It was a higher 4-star. 4.5 maybe? I don't know. It was really good though. I'm so glad I finally read this. Liked that a lot. After that, I was still in the thriller mood. And this next book is probably my favorite book that I read all month long. And that book is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This book was so good. I feel like I'm finally getting through a lot of these books that I've had on my shelf for so long. Like, I've had this for years. Basically, this is about Jules. She just got let go from her job on the same day that she found her boyfriend cheating on her with some other girl. So she moved out because it was technically his apartment, and so now she has no job, no place to live. She's been hanging out, crashing on her friend's couch, staying with her. Things are just not going well for her. One day, she sees this ad for an apartment sitter. Basically, this super old, fancy building. It's called the Bartholomew. It's very famous for being like kind of creepy, and just like all these old rich people live there. But she is in like desperate mode. She goes to apply for this apartment sitter. Basically, the lady's like, we just need someone to occupy this for 3 months. We'll pay you some fat stacks of cash to stay here, make sure everything is nice and clean. So Jules gets this job. She moves in. She's like, this is the life. She is being paid to stay in this huge apartment in New York City. So obviously things seem a little too good to be true. She begins to befriend some of the other apartment sitters. There's 2 other ones. She begins talking to some of the residents that live there, and things just start happening. This is the kind of thriller that I have been wanting. Okay, it was fast-paced. Everything takes place in the span of like 5 days. The characters were great. I was rooting so hard for our main character, Jules. I loved all the different personalities of the people who lived in this apartment. I was never bored. I could never guess what's going on. You never really know what the truth is, the twists and the turns. Oh my god, it felt like a season of American Horror Story, and I love that show. So this was right up my alley. So good. 5 stars. So glad I finally read this. Like I said, it's been sitting on my bookshelf for a long time. Highly recommend. And then I was like, okay, time to jump into some romance again. One of which being Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. This was on my November TBR, and I did read it. So, yay me. This was a book that I read. I don't know, it was okay. But it's basically about Olivia. She burns down her apartment building on accident, so she has to move out. She moves in with her brother, and her brother has this roommate, and coincidentally, okay, this random guy accidentally texts her, but he has the wrong number. Okay, you see where this is going? He texts her, they end up talking back and forth. They end up getting along really well over text. Neither of them know who each other are. You know where I'm going with this? The new roommate, the texting guy. I mean, it's not a spoiler. It's literally like the plot of the book. But yeah, this was okay. It was a rom-com. I'm not really a fan of like these types of rom-coms. The characters were okay. The bants were good. I don't know. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Nothing too amazing. It didn't suck. I like Lynn Painter's writing. I had a feeling I wasn't gonna love this one, but I didn't hate it. I read it, so that's all that matters. 3 stars for the bants. And then I picked up The Birthday List by Devney Perry. This is book 1 in the Mason Jar series, and this follows Poppy right off the bat. We're hit with a very emotional start because she's happily married in this wonderful relationship with this wonderful guy. And then he gets killed. That all happens in the prologue. And then this takes place 5 years after that. She's trying to move on. She's opening this restaurant because it's always something her husband wanted to do. Basically, he kept this list. It was kind of like a bucket list, but he called it the birthday list, and it's all the things he wanted to do before he reached a certain age or during that certain age. I don't know. It's a bucket list essentially. And so Poppy has been trying to fulfill all these things on her husband's bucket list. This is obviously a romance between her and the policeman, the cop guy, the detective guy. Is he a cop? Is he a detective? Don't ask. The guy who showed up at her doorstep 5 years ago and had to tell her that her husband was dead. But they end up seeing each other again. All these years later, they run into each other and they're like, oh hey, I remember you, you know? Instant sparks fly. They are both very attracted to each other, but obviously she is still, you know, kind of grieving her husband. It has been 5 years, but you know, that's a big thing. And she's trying to navigate her life, trying to move on, trying to figure out how to get into a relationship with someone else after your spouse is killed. So it did have some sad moments, but it wasn't as sad as I was thinking. It was very sweet. That's the one word I would describe this book. It was very sweet. It was very wholesome. Cole is a very nice man. He was so good to her. Poppy was she was a very enjoyable character, trying to figure herself out, trying to figure out this new relationship. It was cute. What can I say? I give it 4 stars. It was enjoyable. Good stuff. And that brings us to our very last book of the month, After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was also on my November TBR, and I also read it, so yay me. That might have only been 3 books that I read off that list, but hey, that's good. What can I say? I am trying my best. Anyway, this one I've talked about before. I mentioned it in my book haul, my TBR. This is about Lauren and Ryan. They are married. The first chapter starts off and they are just like sick of each other. They are having arguments. They are kind of just like resentful of one another. They're not having a good time. And then it goes back in time and we get to see them meet. We get to see all the years leading up to where they currently are now. You get to see them fall in love, all their first moments together. Very cute. And then you get hit with the fact that they can't stand each other now. So they're like, well, what are we gonna do? So they decide to just take a year apart. They're like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't be around you. Instead of just being like, yo, let's divorce. They're like, yeah, you know what? Let's just separate ourselves for a year. We're not gonna talk to each other. We're not gonna do any of that. We're just going to live our lives as single people and see what happens. Maybe, you know, distance makes the heart grow fonder. You know that? Maybe that'll work for us. So that's what they do, and it's really just a self-discovery type of book, kind of coming of age story, but they're older, like they're full-on grown adults, but they've been together since they were 19. They just like don't really know who they are without one another, and so this book is really about Lauren discovering herself, discovering what she wants, what she needs to be happy, all that good stuff. The thing I loved most about this book is the side characters. Lauren's siblings are great. I love her siblings. Her coworker / friend was great. Just the people in her life were really great. It was good. I liked it a lot. 4 stars for After I Do. There you have it. That concludes my very interesting November reading wrap up. Honestly, looking back at it, it was a good month, even though I didn't read a single physical book, which was so weird. I just don't know who I am anymore. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!